everyone, I'm Paul the Nitro Skyrus, and welcome to this edition of the Nitro Corner. Before I begin anything, I want to apologize for the no-shows that were on no-shows for last week. Of course, because of the Hurricane Irene situation, I had to feel that where I'm at right now in my life is a little bit more important than this show. So please excuse me for doing the no-shows last week. Of course, because Hurricane Irene, I had other main focus was on the Irene situation. I'm glad that I made out of it, no significant damage. Thank goodness for that. So let's begin with the Nitro Corners weekend report. And we'll start off with Monday Night Raw as Triple H came out there first. It was a Super Raw to begin things. Triple H came out there and he called out Kevin Nash for an explanation of what happened last week as Kevin Nash cost CM Punk his opportunity at the #1 contendership for the world's heavyweight title. Nash explained that the phony car accident situation was his fault. He admitted the lie and stated that he wanted CM Punk because CM Punk was disrespectful towards Kevin Nash and Triple H. Well, out comes CM Punk, who did not like this situation, thinks both of them are in cahoots and want to fight them. But Triple H has security hold back CM Punk and announces that Kevin Nash will meet CM Punk at the Night of Champions pay-per-view in a couple weeks. Yeah, let's talk about conspiracy on that one, folks. They are in cahoots. I'm not being fooled by that. The first match of the night saw Randy Orton, the World Heavyweight Champion, defeat the United States Heavyweight Champion Dolph Ziggler. Great victory for Randy Orton in that one. Next up, John Cena comes out there and he calls out Alberto Del Rio, his opponent at the Night of Champions in a couple weeks. Well, Del Rio does not show up, but Mark Henry does, and so does Christian. They don't like John Cena and they want to take care of him. Well, it was announced by the anonymous Raw General Manager that it will be John Cena and his partner of his choice to take on Christian and Mark Henry later on in the night in the main event on the Raw Super Show. Speaking of CM Punk is in our next bout as he defeated The Miz as a result of a disqualification because of outside interference from R-Truth, CM Punk, and of course Kevin Nash. It seems like CM Punk and Kevin Nash are on a collision course at the Night of Champions. Or are they? I'll digress that a little bit in just a little bit. Excuse me there. A little slow to this week. Next up, Sin Cara defeated Jack Swagger in a one-on-one contest. Congratulations to Sin Cara. Very interesting thing that happened to Sin Cara later on SmackDown. That will be on part 2 of the weekend report in just a few moments. Next up, the new WWE Tag Team Champions, Kofi Kingston and Evan Bourne, defeated David Otunga and Michael McGillicuddy in a rematch to keep the tag team belts. I'm very excited by this new team of Evan Bourne and Kofi Kingston. Be on the lookout for them in the near future. Next up, Brie Bella used a little twin magic to defeat and upset Divas champion Kelly Kelly. I think ever since the Beth Phoenix situation after SummerSlam, she's been on a kind of a downward spiral as of late. Hopefully Kelly will get out of this little slump and start winning once again. Next up, the main event sees John Cena and his partner of his choice, the Celtic Warrior, Sheamus, defeat Christian and Mark Henry in the main event, as Sheamus scored the winning pinfall on Christian. Great victory by Cena and Sheamus, former enemies, now tag team partners for one night. As I mentioned earlier, we thought it was going to be CM Punk versus Kevin Nash at the Night of Champions. Well, that changed because of what happened earlier in the evening. Triple H informed CM Punk in Triple H's office that the board of directors have decided to cancel the Kevin Nash CM Punk match at the Night of Champions. In its place, Triple H himself, the career politician, the COO of of the WWE will don the tights to take on CM Punk at the Night of Champions, and that ended Monday Night Raw. Overall, it was a pretty interesting Monday Night Raw, a little bit of an improvement, and of course the great tag team main event, and of course the announcement of CM Punk versus Triple H finally at the Night of Champions. Moving on now to the Impact report from Thursday, September 1st. It was live at the Huntsville Civic Center, at the Von Braun Civic Center, in Huntsville, Alabama. The show opened with Hollywood Hulk Hogan coming out there stating that the Sting versus Ric Flair match is still on. It will take place on September 15th on Impact. And then he called out Kurt Angle, who immediately called out Sting, saying, quote unquote, here in Huntsville tonight, Sting will get his rematch for the TNA World Heavyweight title. Well, Hulk Hogan also steps in and said that Sting, that in the Sting Angle match, Hulk Hogan himself will be the guest enforcer referee. Should be interesting to see how Hogan does as an enforcer referee. Right. Moving on now, the Bound for Glory series, as Gunner pulls a big win over Rob Van Dam, picking up 7 points, and because of that, Gunner now moves into the Final Four, headed toward the Bound for Glory series, which wraps up, I do believe, next week on Impact. Excuse me there for just a second. Whew, okay. So I'm looking forward to the finale of the Bound for Glory series. It will be Crimson, Robert Roode, Gunner, of course, and I believe James Storm. Not really too sure who the Final Four are. I think those are the Final Four. I'll have it updated for you hopefully tomorrow, and I'll talk about tomorrow's show in just a minute. Moving on now, Eric Bischoff comes out there and announces that allegedly we all thought that Miss Tracy Brooks was going to be the new CEO of the Knockouts division on TNA. Well, that turned out to be false, as Karen Angle is now in charge of the Divas, of the Knockouts, and she wants all the Knockouts to be prim and proper and make sure that they are beneath her. Oh, excuse me, I should not mean to not to overstep my boundaries there, Karen. I should know my role and be underneath you, correct? Excuse me. And be underneath you, correct? I don't think so. And if you do that to Velvet Sky or Angelina Love, you're going to be falling flat on your face. I hate to be you right now. And I'll leave it at that. Next up, great X Division tag matches. Brian Kendrick and Jesse Sorensen defeated the Universal Heartthrob, Austin Aries, and Kid Cash in a tag team matchup. The X Division certainly heating up in TNA. Next up, we have a brand new Knockouts champion, as Mickie James wins the belt from Winter with a vicious savate kick to the head. Congratulations to Mickie James, the brand new Knockouts champion in TNA. Next up, Matt Morgan comes out there and calls out Samoa Joe, saying he's sick and tired of Joe's attitude towards the Bound for Glory series and towards other wrestlers. Well, Joe comes out and they start brawling everywhere until Joe decides to lay out Matt Morgan with a steel chair and leaves him laying. That's going to be an interesting situation now that Matt Morgan's back on TNA Impact. Next up, in a much anticipated bout, the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels scores a surprising win over the phenomenal one AJ Styles. As AJ slipped off the top rope, Daniels takes advantage for the 3 count. Excuse me. Anyway, after the matchup, AJ Styles wanted to offer a handshake to Daniels. Daniels refused the handshake. That's right, refused the handshake and left, saying that he was the victor. Watch out for a renewal of that rivalry between AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. in the very near future. Next up, the main event sees Kurt Angle defeat Sting to retain the TNA World Heavyweight title after delivering an angle slam onto a steel chair after Sting got distracted by Hulk Hogan, who once again shows his bias and truly enforced the law. Didn't he, Hulk? Yeah, you enforced it your way, Hulk. Your way. And it worked, didn't it, Hulk? Your buddy Kurt Angle keeps the TNA World Heavyweight title. After that, you get Immortal to go out there and soften up Sting for Ric Flair next week on Impact. Well, out from nowhere comes Mr. Anderson, and he takes a baseball bat and runs them all off. Expect Mr. Anderson to team up with Sting, in the near future against Immortal. And that is Impact for this week. Impact from Huntsville was a very exciting show this past week. I'm very pleased by it. Great job by TNA Impact, including that World Heavyweight title match and, of course, the new Knockouts champion, Mickie James. As always, we end part 1 with the Nitro Opinion this week, and I want to talk about the dangers of the road. This past week, in case you haven't noticed, on WWE.com, it was reported that Santino Marella, a WWE superstar, was involved in a serious car accident in Toronto, Canada. As he was about to leave his barbershop because his barber was not there to give him a haircut, Santino was hit by another car and his car turned over. Luckily for Santino, all he suffered was a separated shoulder, and he'll be out for a few months. Now, this brings about the dangers of the road, because the road does end careers and kill wrestlers. I know of an example would be former AWA star Hercules Cortez, who got ran over by a car in 1973, killing him while he was changing his tire on the road. I've heard other stories about Mid-South Championship Wrestling wrestlers that were involved in car accidents, including one involving Dr. Steve Williams and Rick Steiner actually saving someone from a burning truck. The dangers of the road, it is highly dangerous, even though people travel up and down the road these days by air or also by land. It is very important to stress out that these wrestlers are on the road constantly over a 1 year period, almost 350 days a year. Car accidents do happen. Stuff like this does happen, folks. So if you see a car accident involving a WWE superstar that you read in the papers or online, like the Santino Marella incident, please say a prayer out for that particular wrestler. Make sure that he's all right and that he is safe at home with his family or at his own home, luckily to have his career as well as, more importantly, his health. And that is my Nitro Opinion for this week. And that ends part 1 of the Weekend Report. I'm sorry, kind of lackadaisical, a little bit sluggish after the Hurricane Irene situation. But I will be back with part 2 of the Weekend Report. Until then, I'm Paul the Nitro Skyver saying so long, everybody.